A poor girl in a wheelchair asks to pay later. What the millionaire does surprises everyone. Before we dive into the story, leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The marble floors of Harrison Montgomery's Manhattan penthouse echoed with emptiness as his Italian leather shoes clicked down the hallway. At 49, he commanded Wall Street with an iron fist, but the vastness of his home only emphasized what he lacked. "Cancel my dinner with the Japanese investors," Harrison barked into his phone. "Double the initial offer instead." His assistant stammered an acknowledgement, accustomed to these last-minute changes. Harrison ended the call without saying goodbye, sliding the phone into his tailored suit pocket. His reflection stared back at him from the window glass, distinguished silver at the temples, a sharp jawline, and eyes that had forgotten how to smile. The penthouse stretched around him, 10,000 square feet of premium real estate filled with expensive furniture, rare art, and absolutely no warmth. No family photos lined the walls. The housekeeper kept everything in perfect order, but nothing suggested anyone actually lived there. If you've ever felt alone despite having everything, leave a like. You're not alone in this journey. The next morning, Harrison stopped at Westside Cafe for his usual black coffee. The line moved efficiently until it didn't. At the register, a small commotion caught his attention. "I'm sorry, dear," the cashier said gently. "That's not enough." Harrison leaned slightly to see around the businessman in front of him. A girl in a wheelchair held crumpled dollar bills toward the cashier. Her clothes were clean but worn, her brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Most striking was the firm determination in her chin. "Please, ma'am," the girl said, her voice steady despite the flush of embarrassment on her cheeks. "I can bring the rest tomorrow, I promise." The cashier looked distressed. Other customers shifted uncomfortably. Something about the girl's dignity, refusing to beg while clearly in need, pierced through Harrison's carefully constructed indifference. "Add her purchase to mine," he heard himself saying, stepping forward. The girl turned, her bright blue eyes widening. "You don't need to do that, sir." "I know," Harrison replied, feeling strangely seen under her direct gaze. After paying, Harrison found himself asking, "Where are your parents?" The girl's face darkened. "They died. I'm Emma Parker." She extended her small hand with surprising formality. "Harrison Montgomery," he replied automatically, taking her hand. Outside, rain began to fall. Emma looked anxiously at the downpour, then at her wheelchair. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Harrison asked, already knowing the answer from her worn jacket and the small backpack hanging from her wheelchair. "I'll be fine," Emma insisted, though her voice wavered. Harrison's driver pulled up in the black town car. The practical thing would be to call social services immediately, yet something made him hesitate as he looked at Emma's resigned expression. "You'll get soaked," he said. "My house is nearby. You could dry off, eat something proper." Emma studied him with wisdom beyond her years. "Why would you help me?" It was a question Harrison couldn't answer even to himself. He only knew that walking away suddenly seemed impossible. "Because today you need it," he said simply, opening the car door, "just until the rain stops. Moments like this define who we really are. If this story is touching your heart, hit the bell to not miss our next inspiring videos." When Emma reluctantly agreed and his driver helped her wheelchair into the car, Harrison Montgomery, feared titan of finance, felt something unknown, a thin crack in the walls he'd built around his heart. Mrs. Wilson, Harrison's housekeeper for 15 years, nearly dropped her feather duster when the elevator doors opened to reveal her employer with a child in a wheelchair. "Mr. Montgomery?" she questioned, her Scottish accent thickening with surprise. "This is Emma," Harrison said awkwardly. "She needed shelter from the rain." Mrs. Wilson recovered quickly, her professional demeanor returning. "Hello, dear. Let's get you warmed up." Harrison's penthouse, designed to impress business associates rather than provide comfort, suddenly seemed ridiculously impractical. 3 steps led to the sunken living room. Doorways seemed narrower than he'd ever noticed. The elegant furniture appeared untouchable. Perhaps the kitchen would be more accessible, Mrs. Wilson suggested, leading them to the service elevator. In the warmth of the kitchen, Emma's shoulders relaxed slightly. Mrs. Wilson bustled about preparing hot chocolate and sandwiches, while Harrison stood uncomfortably, uncertain of his role in this unexpected scenario. "Do you live alone in this whole big place?" Emma asked, looking around. "Yes," Harrison replied, then added unnecessarily, "It's convenient for work. It's very—" Emma searched for words. "Shiny." Mrs. Wilson suppressed a smile as she placed food before Emma, who ate with careful restraint despite obvious hunger. "Where have you been staying, Emma?" Harrison asked, dreading the answer. "Different places," she evaded. "Shelter sometimes when there's space." "And your parents?" "Car accident last year." Emma's voice became mechanical, as if reciting rehearsed lines. "I was at school. That's how I got hurt too, my back and legs. The doctor said I might walk again someday with therapy, but—" She shrugged. "Surely there must be relatives," Harrison insisted. "None who wanted me." Emma's matter-of-fact tone made the statement more heartbreaking. Harrison excused himself, retreating to his office. He should call social services immediately. This wasn't his problem to solve. He made the call, but felt unexpectedly disturbed when informed that Emma would be placed in an emergency group home. "Do you have facilities for children with disabilities?" he found himself asking. "We accommodate all children, sir," came the rehearsed response, "but resources are limited." After ending the call, Harrison stood staring at the rain-streaked windows. Returning to the kitchen, he found Mrs. Wilson helping Emma wash up. "Is someone coming to take me away?" Emma asked calmly, seeing his expression. Harrison hesitated. "Not tonight. The storm is getting worse." Mrs. Wilson raised an eyebrow but nodded approvingly. "I'll prepare the guest room." Doody! That night, after settling Emma in a room larger than any apartment she'd probably known, Harrison found himself looking at old family photographs he'd stored away years ago. Something about Emma's expressions tugged at his memory. In his own room, Harrison called Catherine Lewis, the city's best family attorney. "I need advice about temporary guardianship," he said without preamble. "It's complicated." As Harrison explained the situation, he realized he'd already made a decision that would change everything for both of them. "You did what?" Catherine Lewis's voice crackled through Harrison's phone the next morning. "Temporary custody," Harrison repeated, pacing in his office, "just until proper arrangements can be made." "Harrison, you can't just pick up a child from the street. There are protocols, background checks." "That's why I called you," Harrison interrupted. "Handle the legalities. And I'm hiring Marcus Reed to investigate her background. The best decisions in life often begin with a spontaneous act of kindness. Share this video if you believe in the power of compassion." After ending the call, Harrison found Emma in the kitchen with Mrs. Wilson, who was ingeniously adapting breakfast preparation to include her new helper. "Good morning," Emma said, her eyes cautious but hopeful. "Mrs. Wilson let me mix the pancake batter." "I see," Harrison replied, surprised by the domestic scene. "Emma, I've arranged for you to stay here temporarily while we sort things out properly." Emma's face remained carefully neutral. How temporary? The question hung in the air, weighted with past disappointments. "I don't know yet," Harrison answered honestly, "but you won't be going back to the streets. That I promise." Later that morning, Marcus Reed arrived. A compact man with observant eyes who asked Emma gentle questions about her parents, their names, and where they'd lived. "James and Rebecca Parker," Emma recited. "We lived in Queens until the accident." While Emma rested that afternoon, Harrison had his driver take him to the office. He needed normalcy, spreadsheets, acquisitions, the familiar rhythm of making money. "Is everything all right, sir?" his assistant asked, noticing his distraction. "Fine," Harrison replied curtly, then caught himself. "Actually, cancel my schedule for tomorrow morning." That evening, Harrison returned with shopping bags. Mrs. Wilson had texted a list of essentials for Emma: clothes, toiletries, and age-appropriate books for a 9-year-old. "I didn't know what you liked," Harrison said awkwardly, placing the bags before a stunned Emma. She pulled out a soft purple sweater, running her fingers over the fabric with reverence. "This is too much, Mr. Montgomery." "Harrison," he corrected automatically. As Emma explored her gifts, Harrison noticed a small locket around her neck that she touched frequently. "May I see that?" he asked hesitantly. Emma opened the locket, revealing a worn photograph of a smiling couple, her parents. Something about the man's face triggered a distant memory in Harrison. His moment was interrupted when the elevator announced a visitor. Victoria Montgomery, Harrison's niece, entered without waiting for welcome. "Uncle Harrison, I've been trying to reach you about the Dawson merger." Victoria stopped abruptly, staring at Emma. "Who is this?" "Victoria, meet Emma Parker. She's staying with me temporarily." Victoria's perfectly manicured hand tightened around her designer purse. At 35, she'd positioned herself as Harrison's apparent heir, both professionally and personally. "A word, Uncle," she said privately. In his office, Victoria didn't hide her alarm. "Have you lost your mind? Picking up some random child? Do you have any idea how this looks?" "It's not your business, Victoria. Everything about you is my business. I've dedicated my life to Montgomery Investments. I won't let you jeopardize everything with some misguided charity project." Harrison's phone rang. "Marcus, with preliminary findings. Death certificates confirm James and Rebecca Parker died 14 months ago. Car accident, as she said." After Victoria left, her disapproval lingering in the air like expensive perfume, Harrison found Emma at the window, watching the city lights. "Is your niece angry because of me?" she asked perceptively. "Victoria is protective of our family name," Harrison replied. "I understand," Emma said, her voice suddenly older. "I should probably leave before I cause trouble." Harrison felt something protective stir within him. "You're not going anywhere yet. Victoria will adjust." But as Harrison looked again at the photograph in Emma's locket, a disturbing sense of familiarity continued to nag at him. Sometimes the deepest connections begin with a simple look. If you're enjoying this story, leave your like and keep watching. You won't believe what happens next. Harrison's phone rang precisely at 7:30 a.m. Marcus Reed never called this early unless the news was significant. "I found something you need to see immediately," Marcus said without preamble. An hour later, Harrison sat in his home office staring at documents spread across his desk, his coffee growing cold. James Parker had invested his life savings, including his daughter's medical fund, in the Montgomery Strategic Growth Fund. When the market crashed in 2020, the fund had lost value massively. While technically legal, the fund's risk disclosures had been deliberately minimized. Harrison hadn't personally overseen these disclosures, but his signature was on the regulatory filings. "The Parkers lost everything," Marcus explained. "They were living in their car before the accident. James was working 3 jobs, trying to rebuild enough savings for Emma's therapy." Harrison felt physically sick. His company's actions had contributed to the Parkers' desperate circumstances, which indirectly led to the fatal accident while rushing between jobs. "There's more," Marcus continued hesitantly. "I've been comparing photos. James Parker bears a striking resemblance to—" A commotion from the living room interrupted them. Harrison found Mrs. Wilson confronting 2 police officers while Emma watched with wide eyes from her wheelchair. "Mr. Montgomery," the taller officer stepped forward. "I'm Detective Ramirez. We need to speak with you about allegations of child endangerment and possible kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" Harrison repeated incredulously. "We received a detailed report alleging you've assumed custody of a minor without legal authority." "Victoria, it had to be her." "The child in question is right here," Harrison said calmly. "Ask her if she's being held against her will." "Sir, we need to follow protocol. Social services have been notified." "My attorney is handling temporary guardianship documentation," Harrison explained. "Catherine Lewis, call her." Detective Ramirez stepped away to make the call while Harrison knelt beside Emma. "Do I have to leave?" she whispered. "Not if I can help it," Harrison promised. After 30 tense minutes, Catherine arrived armed with preliminary documentation showing Harrison had initiated proper legal channels. The detectives left, but not before warning that an investigation would continue. Victoria made the report, Harrison stated when they were alone. Almost certainly, Catherine agreed. Harrison, this won't be the last attack. If you're serious about guardianship, you need to understand what you're facing. I won't abandon her to the system, Harrison said with unexpected ferocity. Catherine studied him. This isn't like you. Maybe it should have been, he replied quietly. That night, as Harrison helped Emma with homework that Mrs. Wilson had somehow procured, his phone buzzed with news alerts. Montgomery takes in child, philanthropy or pathology. Wall Street Titan's strange behavior raises questions. Sources close to Montgomery family express concern about mental state. Victoria had gone to the press. Harrison was contemplating his next move when Emma suddenly shivered, her face flushing. "Are you okay?" he asked worriedly. "Just tired," she mumbled, but her forehead was warm to the touch. Harrison called Dr. Bennett, his personal physician, who arrived promptly. After examining Emma, he frowned. "She has significant fever. Given her condition, I'd like to run some tests." As Dr. Bennett collected blood samples, he looked thoughtfully between Harrison and Emma. "You know," he commented, "she reminds me of your brother Edward. Something about the eyes." The comment hit Harrison like a physical blow. Edward, his younger brother who had died 5 years ago after years of estrangement between them. The same brother whose features had been nagging at Harrison's memory when he saw James Parker's photograph. Truth has a way of revealing itself at the most unexpected moments. If you're eager to discover the connection, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the end of this incredible story. Harrison Montgomery, feared Wall Street titan, had faced hostile takeovers and market crashes without flinching, yet nothing had prepared him for watching a small, feverish child undergo medical tests. "Her immune system is compromised," Dr. Bennett explained in the hallway outside Emma's room. "Likely from months of inadequate nutrition and inconsistent medical care." Harrison nodded grimly. "What does she need?" "Rest, proper medication, and stability." Dr. Bennett hesitated. "Harrison, about what I mentioned earlier, the resemblance to Edward." "Not now," Harrison cut him off. After the doctor left, Harrison found 3 urgent messages from his executive team. Company stock had dropped 7 points following Victoria's media campaign. "Mr. Montgomery," Mrs. Wilson appeared at his office door. "The child is asking for you." Harrison found Emma propped against pillows, her face flushed with fever, but her eyes alert. "Those policemen think you kidnapped me," she stated directly. "Something like that," Harrison admitted. "Why don't you just tell them I was living on the street? Then they'll leave you alone." Harrison sat carefully on the edge of the bed. "It's complicated. My niece believes I'm not thinking clearly. Because of me," Emma concluded. "Rich people don't just pick up street kids." "No," Harrison agreed. "They usually don't. So why did you?" The question hung between them. Harrison had been asking himself the same thing. "I'm not entirely sure," he answered honestly. "It seemed necessary." Emma studied him with those penetrating blue eyes. Edward's eyes, now that he allowed himself to see. "My dad used to say that necessary things aren't always explainable," she offered. The comment struck Harrison deeply. What else had James Parker said that echoed his estranged brother? Morning brought new challenges. Harrison's board had called an emergency meeting. The choice was impossible: attend to protect his company or stay with Emma. Mrs. Wilson provided an unexpected solution. "Take her to the board meeting," Harrison was incredulous. "Show them the child they're all speculating about. Let them see she's not being mistreated." Remarkably, Emma embraced the idea. "I'll wear my new purple sweater and behave as best as possible." The Montgomery Investments boardroom fell silent when Harrison entered pushing Emma's wheelchair. Victoria, seated at the far end, nearly dropped her tablet. "Gentlemen, ladies," Harrison began, "I believe recent events require context. This is Emma Parker." Emma smiled politely. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I apologize for any disruption I've caused to your business." Her composure in facing a room of powerful strangers was remarkable. Several directors visibly softened. Throughout the meeting, Emma sat calmly beside Harrison, occasionally asking whispered questions about financial terms. When Harrison explained a complex market projection, she nodded thoughtfully. "It's like weather forecasting with money," she observed loud enough for others to hear. Walter Jameson, his most conservative board member, unexpectedly chuckled. The meeting concluded with agreement to issue a statement describing Harrison's actions as temporary guardianship pending proper placement, neutralizing the kidnapping narrative. As they left, Walter approached them. "She's quite bright." "Yes," Harrison agreed, feeling an unfamiliar surge of pride. "She reminds me of someone," Walter murmured, studying Emma. "Can't place who." Victoria intercepted them at the elevator. "What a performance," she hissed. "But this little charade won't last. The court date for custody evaluation is next week." Returning home, they found Marcus waiting with a folder. "I found employment records. Rebecca Parker worked as Edward's administrative assistant for 6 months before his death." Harrison froze, the pieces beginning to align in a pattern he'd been subconsciously avoiding. Later that night, Emma's fever spiked dangerously. As Harrison helped Mrs. Wilson cool her burning forehead with damp cloths, he made a silent promise to the brother he'd failed in life. He wouldn't fail Edward's daughter. Harrison spent hours alone in his rarely used basement storage room, surrounded by dusty boxes labeled Edward. Inside, he found his brother's journals, photographs, and personal belongings, a life preserved in cardboard, untouched since Edward's fatal car accident 5 years ago. The brothers had once been close, but Edward's wild lifestyle and Harrison's rigid judgments had created an unbridgeable chasm. Their last conversation had been a bitter argument about responsibility. 3 days later, Edward was dead. A photograph slipped from a journal, a company year-end party. Harrison recognized Rebecca Parker immediately, standing next to Edward, both laughing. She was younger, healthier, but unmistakably Emma's mother. Further in the journal, an entry caught his attention. "R says I need to grow up. She might be right. I find myself thinking about the future for the first time." The date was 3 months before Edward's death. The most shocking revelations are yet to come. If you're holding your breath like I am, leave a comment with your theory about what's going to happen. Harrison's phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson, sir, you need to come upstairs. Victoria is here with social workers." Upstairs, he found Victoria standing in his living room with 2 officials. Emma sat in her wheelchair, her face pale but composed. "Mr. Montgomery," the older woman began, "I'm Claire Dawson from Child Protective Services. We're conducting a welfare check based on concerns raised about Emma's situation." "My niece's concerns," Harrison clarified coldly. Victoria stepped forward. "Uncle Harrison, this is for your own good. Your behavior has become erratic. The board is worried. Your investors are worried." "My investments are doing quite well," Harrison countered. "These delusions of playing family," Victoria gestured toward Emma, "are jeopardizing everything you've built," Claire intervened. "Mr. Montgomery, we just need to assess living conditions and Emma's welfare." Harrison nodded stiffly. "Please, feel free." The inspection was thorough. Mrs. Wilson proudly showed Emma's room, now equipped with accessibility features Harrison had installed. Emma answered questions calmly, though Harrison noticed her growing exhaustion. "She has a fever," Harrison explained. "Dr. Bennett is monitoring her condition." When the officials finally left, apparently satisfied, Victoria remained. "You've always been cold, calculating, and brilliant," she said. "That's why I respected you. Now you're throwing it all away for what? Some random child's sob story." "She's not random," Harrison replied quietly. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" Before Harrison could answer, they heard a crash from Emma's room. They rushed to find her collapsed on the floor, having tried to reach the bathroom alone. "Call Dr. Bennett!" Harrison shouted, gathering Emma's frighteningly light body in his arms. Within an hour, Emma was hospitalized. Dr. Bennett emerged from her room with a grave expression. "She needs a blood transfusion immediately. Her blood type is rare." B negative with a specific antigen profile. Test me, Harrison demanded. Harrison, Dr. Bennett hesitated. There's something else. I ran a preliminary DNA comparison based on the blood samples I collected earlier, and the results strongly suggest you and Emma share genetics consistent with being related. Not father and daughter, but uncle and niece would fit the pattern. The confirmation of what Harrison had begun to suspect hit him like a physical blow. Edward, he whispered. It appears so, Dr. Bennett confirmed. And Harrison, we need to act quickly. She's significantly worse than I initially thought. Any decision you're making about telling her may need to happen soon. Fate has a mysterious way of reuniting families. If your heart is racing with this revelation, don't forget to like and share this touching story. As Dr. Bennett left to prepare the transfusion, Harrison stood at the window of Emma's hospital room. The child lying there, his niece, his brother's daughter, seemed impossibly small against the white sheets. Victoria appeared at his shoulder. Is it true? She's Edward's daughter. Yes, Harrison said simply. This changes everything, Victoria murmured, her calculating mind already adjusting to this new reality. No, Harrison corrected her. It doesn't change anything. She was already someone who needed help. Now she's family who needs help. For the first time in his adult life, Harrison Montgomery knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors. Harrison sat beside Emma's bed, her small hand clasped in his. The blood transfusion, his blood, had stabilized her condition, but she remained pale and fragile. Dr. Bennett entered with a tablet displaying test results. The DNA comparison is conclusive. Emma is indeed Edward's daughter. Harrison nodded. The confirmation only cemented what his heart already knew. How could I not have seen it? He whispered. The eyes, the way she analyzes things. When will you tell her? Dr. Bennett asked gently. When she wakes up, Harrison replied. No more secrets. Alone again with Emma, Harrison studied her face, seeing Edward in every feature. His mind raced through memories, Edward's rebellious spirit, his laughter, their final bitter argument. I'm sorry, Harrison whispered to his unconscious niece. I failed your father. I won't fail you. Marcus arrived with a worn leather journal. Found this in Rebecca Parker's storage unit. You should read it. The journal revealed the story. Rebecca and Edward's relationship, her discovery of pregnancy after his death, her decision to raise Emma alone rather than approach the intimidating Montgomery family. One entry pierced Harrison's heart. James is a good man who loves Emma as if she were his own daughter. We never speak of her biological father, but sometimes when she smiles, Edward's ghost is in the room with us. Hours later, Emma's eyelids fluttered open. Harrison, she murmured. I'm here, he assured her, pressing the nurse call button. Am I very sick? She asked. You were, Harrison explained, but you're getting better. We match. Our blood. Confusion crossed Emma's face. How? Harrison took a deep breath. Emma, I discovered something important. My brother Edward, he was your biological father. Emma's eyes widened, processing this revelation. You're my uncle. Yes. Is that why you helped me? Because somehow you knew? No, Harrison said honestly. I helped you because you needed it. Finding out we're family, that's a gift I never expected. Tears filled Emma's eyes. My mom never told me about my real father. Naishus, she must have had her reasons, Harrison said gently, but I found her journal. She wrote that she loved him and that he would have loved you very much. Victoria appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Seeing Emma awake, she hesitated. Come in, Victoria, Harrison said. Meet your cousin properly. Victoria approached cautiously. Hello, Emma. Are you still angry that I'm staying with Harrison? Emma asked directly. A flash of shame crossed Victoria's face. I was protecting our family legacy. I am your family legacy, Emma replied with quiet dignity. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Recognition perhaps of a Montgomery trait in this child's unwavering directness. Yes, she conceded. It seems you are. True families aren't just about blood, but about choice and love. If this transformation is moving you, tag someone special who needs to see this story. That night, as Emma slept peacefully, Harrison stood in the hospital corridor with Catherine. "I want to file for permanent guardianship," he declared. "As her uncle, her blood relative, her family." Catherine nodded. "The blood relationship significantly strengthens your case, but Victoria's actions have created complications. Victoria won't be a problem anymore," Harrison said with certainty. "She understands what's at stake now." Harrison Montgomery had spent his life building financial empires. Now, watching his niece sleep, he recognized that his most important construction project was just beginning, rebuilding a family from the fragments of the past. "What color would you prefer for your room?" Harrison asked, showing paint samples to Emma as she sat propped up in her hospital bed 3 days after the transfusion. Her condition had improved dramatically. "I get to choose?" Emma seemed puzzled by the concept. "Of course it's your room now, permanently." Emma's fingers hovered over the blues and purples. "This one," she finally decided, selecting a soft lavender. It was Mom's favorite color. Harrison nodded, making a note. Architects had already begun transforming his penthouse, installing ramps, widening doorways, and redesigning the bathroom for accessibility. "The contractors start tomorrow," Harrison explained. "Mrs. Wilson is overseeing everything." Dr. Bennett entered with discharge papers. "Remember, she needs rest, proper nutrition, and regular therapy appointments." "Already arranged," Harrison confirmed. A physical therapist would visit daily, and he'd hired a tutor until Emma could attend school. Catherine arrived as they were preparing to leave. "Good news," she announced. "Judge Williams granted an expedited hearing for permanent guardianship, given the family relationship." "When?" Harrison asked. "Next Thursday." Emma looked anxiously. "What if they say no?" Harrison squeezed her hand. "They won't." At home, they found Mrs. Wilson had transformed Harrison's sterile living room with soft throws, cushions, and framed photographs of Edward that Harrison had unearthed from storage. "Thought the girl should see her father," Mrs. Wilson explained. Emma wheeled to a photo of Edward sailing, his laughter captured mid-wind. "So alive." "He looks happy," she said softly. "He was, when he was on the water," Harrison replied. "He loved freedom." "Like me," Emma observed. "I feel freest when I'm reading or drawing, like I can go anywhere." That evening, Victoria arrived unexpectedly carrying a large portfolio. "This isn't an ambush," Victoria assured her. To Emma, she said, "I found these in the company files. Your father, Edward, designed buildings before he left architecture for other pursuits." Emma opened the portfolio with reverent fingers, discovering Edward's sketches and blueprints. "He created things," she whispered in wonder. "He was brilliant," Victoria acknowledged. "Undisciplined, but brilliant." As Emma explored her father's work, Victoria pulled Harrison aside. "I've withdrawn my opposition to the guardianship," she declared clinically, "and I'll issue a press statement clarifying that Emma is Edward's daughter and legitimately part of the Montgomery family." Harrison studied his niece suspiciously. "Why the change of heart?" Victoria hesitated, uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Edward was the only person who ever treated me like I mattered for something beyond my Montgomery name. He was kind to me when you weren't. Seeing his daughter," she looked at Emma, "it's like having a piece of him back." Later, after Victoria left, Harrison found Emma trying to draw, mimicking Edward's architectural style. "I want to build things too," she announced. "Buildings that people in wheelchairs can move through easily." Harrison examined her surprisingly sophisticated drawing. "You inherited his talent." "And what did I inherit from you?" Emma asked unexpectedly. The question caught Harrison off guard. "From me, you're my niece, we share blood. There must be something." Harrison considered this. Maybe determination. Edward called it stubbornness. Emma smiled that radiant smile that transformed her face, and Harrison saw his brother so clearly it hurt. "Family is complicated," she observed wisely. "Yes," Harrison agreed, "but it's worth fighting for." That night, reviewing guardianship papers with Catherine, Harrison realized he wasn't just gaining a ward, he was reclaiming the family he'd nearly lost through years of emotional isolation. Through Emma, Edward was giving him a second chance. The moment of truth is approaching. If you're rooting for Harrison and Emma, turn on notifications to follow the unfolding of this incredible story. The Montgomery name commanded respect everywhere in New York, except apparently in family court. Harrison sat rigidly on an uncomfortable wooden bench, surrounded by anxious families awaiting their own hearings. Catherine reviewed documents beside him while Emma, dressed in a new blue dress, nervously fingered her locket. "Remember," Catherine whispered, "let me do most of the talking. Judge Williams is known for being thorough, especially with high-profile cases." Harrison nodded, adjusting his tie. In 20 years of business, he'd never felt such anxiety before any meeting. "Montgomery guardianship case," the clerk called. Inside the courtroom, Harrison was surprised to see Victoria already seated in the gallery. She nodded slightly, her presence unexpectedly comforting. "Quite a media circus around this case, Ms. Lewis." Judge Williams, a stern-faced woman with silver hair, studied them over her reading glasses. "Unfortunately, Your Honor," Catherine agreed, "but at its core, this is simply about a child finding her family." The proceedings began methodically, evidence of Emma's paternity, Harrison's financial stability, the completed home modifications for Emma's accessibility needs. The court-appointed guardian ad litem testified next. "Mr. Montgomery has made remarkable adjustments to accommodate Emma's needs. However, I must note that his work schedule has historically been demanding. 60-plus-hour weeks are concerning for a guardian." Harrison leaned forward. "May I address that concern, Your Honor?" The judge nodded. "I've restructured my leadership role at Montgomery Investments. I now work primarily from home 3 days a week and have hired a COO to manage daily operations. That represents a significant change in your professional life," the judge observed. "Emma represents a significant change in my personal life," Harrison replied simply. "Priorities adjust accordingly." Emma's physical therapist testified about her progress. "She's showing remarkable improvement with consistent therapy. There's real potential for partial mobility recovery." "And who accompanies Emma to these sessions?" the judge asked. "Mr. Montgomery has never missed one," the therapist confirmed. When it came time for Emma to speak privately with the judge in chambers, Harrison squeezed her hand encouragingly. 20 minutes later, they returned. Emma was smiling. "Having reviewed all evidence and testimony," Judge Williams began, "I find it to be in Emma's best interest to grant permanent guardianship to Harrison Montgomery with the following conditions: continued physical therapy, psychological counseling to address grief and adjustment, and quarterly progress reports during the first year." Harrison exhaled slowly, emotion threatening to overwhelm his carefully maintained composure. "Congratulations," the judge concluded. Court dismissed. Outside, Victoria approached them. "Well done, Uncle Harrison." "Thank you for coming," he said, genuinely grateful. "I brought something," Victoria said, handing Emma a small package. Inside was a silver frame containing a photo of Edward holding baby Victoria. "He was my guardian too for a while," Victoria explained quietly, "after my parents died. He wasn't perfect, but he made sure I knew I was loved." Emma studied the photo, then looked at Victoria with new understanding. "We're both his girls." Something softened in Victoria's expression. "Yes, I suppose we are." That night, Harrison found Emma in her newly renovated room, arranging photos. Her parents, Edward, even one of Harrison from a recent newspaper article announcing Montgomery Investments' new community development initiative. "Creating your family wall?" he asked. "I never thought I'd have so many photos to put up," Emma said, "or so many people who belong to me." Harrison nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. After decades of isolation, he too was rediscovering what it meant to belong to someone. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" Emma asked suddenly, seeking more reassurance. "More than okay," Harrison promised. "We're going to be family. A new family is born from love, not just blood. If this story is restoring your faith in humanity, leave a like and share with someone who needs to believe in miracles. 6 months later, a new life. Mr. Montgomery. While Emma's academic abilities are impressive, she seems hesitant to engage with other students. Harrison shifted uncomfortably in the child-sized chair across from Ms. Patel, Emma's new teacher at Westbrook Academy. Parent-teacher conferences were uncharted territory. She's adjusting to significant changes, Harrison defended. Of course, Ms. Patel agreed, but school is about more than academics. Emma needs friendships, social connections. Harrison nodded, remembering how Emma had grown quiet after her first week at the prestigious school. The other children came from privileged backgrounds with conventional families and without Emma's physical challenges. "What do you suggest?" he asked, humbling himself to seek advice, something the old Harrison Montgomery would never have done. "Our annual STEM fair is next week." Emma mentioned her father was an architect. Perhaps a project connecting to that legacy? Later, Harrison found Emma in her room studying advanced mathematics well beyond her grade level. "How's homework?" he asked, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Easy," she replied, not looking up. "Ms. Patel thinks you're not making friends." Emma's pencil stopped. "The other kids have normal families, normal bodies." "Normal is overrated," Harrison said. "But connection matters. Even I learned that." He told her about the STEM fair, watching her expression carefully. "I could design an accessible playhouse," she suggested, eyes lighting up. "Using Dad's architectural principles. We could work on it together," Harrison offered. That weekend, they spread materials across the dining table, which had never hosted such creative chaos before. Harrison found himself enjoying the precision of scale models, while Emma sketched innovative accessibility features. Victoria arrived unexpectedly, raising an eyebrow at the uncharacteristic mess. "The Montgomery boardroom has relocated, I see," she commented. "STEM fair project," Harrison explained. "Want to help?" Victoria hesitated, then set her designer purse aside. "Edward would never believe this scene." "Which part?" Harrison asked. "Me with glue in my hair, or you about to get marker on your Armani suit?" Victoria smiled, a rare, genuine expression. "Both. Sometimes the best lessons come from the simplest moments. If you're smiling watching this family form, don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories." The final challenge. As they worked, Harrison's phone rang repeatedly with business calls. After the 5th interruption, Victoria gave him a pointed look. "The Preston merger can't wait," he explained apologetically to Emma. "Go," she said with practiced understanding that broke his heart. "I'm used to doing things alone." Instead, Harrison silenced his phone. "They'll figure it out without me. This is more important." The shock on Emma's face was worth every dollar the delayed merger might cost. The following Wednesday, Harrison left an executive meeting early to attend Emma's physical therapy session. Her determination through painful exercises humbled him. "She's making remarkable progress," the therapist said afterward. "Yesterday she stood supported for almost a minute." "You didn't tell me," Harrison said to Emma on the way home. "I wanted to be sure I could do it again," she explained pragmatically, before creating expectations. Harrison recognized his own caution in her words, the Montgomery tendency to protect against disappointment by minimizing hope. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "it's okay to celebrate progress, even if it's not perfect yet." That night, he found Emma trying to stand beside her bed, gripping the specially installed support bar. Her face showed intense concentration as she fought for every second of balance. Harrison stood silently, witnessing her battle. When she finally sank back into her wheelchair, exhausted but triumphant, he stepped forward. 5 seconds longer than yesterday," he noted, having discreetly timed her. "It's not enough," Emma said, frustration evident. "Every second is a victory," Harrison countered, kneeling to meet her eyes. "And Emma, I'm proud of you, not for how long you stood, but because you keep trying." She studied him with Edward's perceptive gaze. "You never used to say things like that, did you?" "No," Harrison admitted. "I was too busy counting other things, money, acquisitions, but I'm learning what really counts." The triumph, And this accessible design allows children of all abilities to play together, Emma explained to the judges at Westbrook Academy's STEM fair. Her architectural model, a playground with innovative ramps, transfer stations, and sensory elements, was impressively displayed on the table. Harrison watched from a distance, resisting the urge to intervene when a judge asked a challenging question. Emma handled it competently, explaining the physics behind her swing system designed for wheelchair users. "You've raised quite an independent young lady," Mrs. Wilson commented, standing beside him. "She was already independent when I found her," Harrison replied. "I'm just giving her better tools." Montgomery investment executives were shocked when Harrison permanently blocked Thursday afternoons on his calendar for fixed commitment, non-negotiable. The old Harrison would never have prioritized a school event over quarterly projections. When the judges moved to the next display, Emma caught Harrison's eye and gave a small thumbs up. Her confidence had grown remarkably in 2 months. True success is measured in the sparkle in the eyes of those we love. If you're getting emotional about Emma's growth, leave a comment telling about a special person in your life. 1 year later, reflections. A year had passed since their first meeting. Harrison Montgomery pushed through the door of West Side Cafe. Beside him, Emma used her crutches, slowly but steadily making her way to the counter. The same cashier who had once witnessed their first interaction did a double take. "Oh my God," she exclaimed, "look at you walking." Emma smiled radiantly. 3 months on crutches now. We thought we'd come get cookies to celebrate our anniversary. 1 year of being a family, Emma clarified, reaching the counter. The once austere Wall Street titan now wore casual clothes, his once perfect hair slightly mussed by wind. The transformation went much deeper than appearance. The cold, calculating eyes now sparkled with laugh lines, and his shoulders had lost their rigid posture. As Emma chatted with the cashier, Harrison reflected on that rainy day a year ago. How close he'd come to simply walking away, how that split-second decision had completely altered the trajectory of his life. After savoring their cookies, they walked through the park, Emma's progress slow but determined. "Tired?" Harrison asked when they reached a bench. "A little," Emma admitted, "but the good kind of tired." And as they sat, Harrison noticed an abandoned newspaper nearby, the business section visible with the headline, "Montgomery Investments Leads Industry in Accessible Design Initiative." "Victoria says the Miami project is ahead of schedule," Emma commented, following his gaze. "My modified playground design will be installed next month. Your father would be proud," Harrison said softly. "Both your fathers." Emma nodded, touching the locket around her neck that now contained 3 photos, James and Rebecca Parker, Edward Montgomery, and a new edition of Harrison and Emma at her school graduation. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked. "That day at the cafe when you saw a kid who couldn't afford cookies?" Harrison shook his head. "I couldn't have imagined any of it. The changes in the company, in Victoria, in our home, in you," Emma added perceptively. "Especially in me," Harrison agreed. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched children playing nearby. "The papers are ready," Harrison said eventually. "Catherine finalized everything yesterday." Emma's eyes lit up. "So it's official. As soon as we sign, you'll be legally Emma Parker Montgomery, not just my ward anymore, but my daughter." "You've been my daughter in all the ways that matter for months," Harrison replied, emotion thickening his voice. "The paperwork just catches up to reality." As they prepared to leave, Emma paused, looking back at the cafe. "You know what I think sometimes? How many moments in life depend on tiny decisions? If you hadn't been at that cafe that morning, if it hadn't been raining, if I hadn't had the courage to ask for help, we never would have found each other," Emma finished. "I think maybe we would have," Harrison said thoughtfully. "Maybe not that day or that way, but somehow. Some connections are meant to be." That night, standing on the terrace of what had transformed from a sterile showcase to a true home, Harrison watched as Emma and Victoria good-naturedly debated architectural plans for Montgomery Initiative's newest project. Mrs. Wilson appeared beside him, offering a rare glass of champagne. "What a family you've built, Mr. Montgomery." Harrison accepted the glass, contemplating the word built. He'd spent his life building financial empires, never realizing that the most important thing he'd ever build would be this, a family forged not through obligation, but through choice, through love. To found families, he toasted softly, raising his glass to the Manhattan skyline, and second chances. In the golden evening light, Harrison Montgomery, once New York's loneliest man, found himself surrounded by the riches that truly mattered. And so our story comes to an end, but the lessons remain. That true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in human connections. That it's never too late to change, and that sometimes the simplest act of kindness can transform not just one life, but two. If this story touched your heart as it touched mine, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who needs to believe that miracles happen every day. What kind of kindness will you spread today? Leave it in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.